Welcome to European Parliamentary Research Service podcast on the EU strategy for the Sahel.
Torn by climate change, food insecurity, uncontrolled population growth, political instability and terrorism, the Sahel poses an evolving threat on Europe's doorstep, as the August coup in Mali has once again shown.
With more or less success, the EU strategy for the region has tried to address the multiple factors of instability, but the new action plan for the region will need to take the EU's and Africa's new geopolitical interest on board if it is to be more successful than its predecessor. Stay with us.
The Sahel is a region stretching across the south-central latitudes of northern Africa between the Atlantic Ocean and the Red Sea. In 2014, 5 Sahel countries, Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania and Niger, came together as the G5 Sahel Group to try to find common solutions to common problems, mainly linked to climate change and security.
Since the 1970s, temperatures in the Sahel have risen twice as fast as in the rest of the world, with devastating effects on agriculture. This, combined with a very large migratory flow caused by conflicts and insecurity in the area, have exacerbated old community rivalries and tensions over land and access to food.
According to the United Nations, 12 million people in the region face a serious lack of food. Struggling to provide basic services throughout their territory and security at their borders, governments are competing with armed groups that have emerged from failed regimes in their neighbourhood, notably Libya.
So how does instability in the region affect the EU, and what has it done about it?
Irregular migration, the risk of terrorist attacks on EU soil, illegal trafficking, you name it. To address the root causes of the complex crisis in the region, the EU adopted a strategy for the Sahel in 2011. It focused on promoting development and good governance, politics and diplomacy, security and the rule of law, and fighting violence and radicalisation.
The strategy involves different EU institutions and is funded by multiple instruments, from the humanitarian and development aid within the EU budget to the Emergency Trust Fund for Africa and the Africa Investment Platform.
The strategy supports actions to prevent and combat irregular migration and trafficking of human beings. It promotes education and training, jobs for young people and equal opportunities, and it counts a wide array of initiatives to prevent and combat radicalisation. But how effective has it been? Let's have a look.
Well, the truth is that despite the revamping of the strategy in 2015 based on the lessons learned, its implementation has been difficult. So while it has fostered integration and regionalisation, security challenges have made it very difficult to achieve tangible results in the fight against radicalisation and for inclusive development.
One of the problems is that it involves many different stakeholders, and coordination between them is not always easy. EU delegations in the Sahel countries are Europe's eyes on the ground, but they rely on national experts and member states' diplomatic and military staff to carry out the different tasks.
The EU has 3 common security and defence policy missions in the area that support and train the Sahelian security force. However, they have neither a mandate nor the budget to provide weapons for the units they train.
Besides this, several EU member states, such as Spain, France and Denmark, have their own political commitments and their own strategies and partnerships with countries in the region. In 2015, a Dutch Institute of International Relations counted no less than 16 Sahel strategies worldwide.
One of the latest is the Coalition for the Sahel, launched by President Macron from France and the heads of state of the G5 Sahel at the Pau Summit in January 2020. It has an umbrella initiative to provide a more collective and inclusive response to the Sahel crisis.
The coalition is based on 4 pillars: the fight against terrorism, capacity building for the armed forces of the G5 countries, support to return state and administration to the territory, and development aid. But amid a deteriorating security situation, countries of the Sahel, especially Mali and Niger, have called for greater international community involvement.
As a response to this call, a political statement was signed by Mali, Niger and several European countries in March 2020, supporting the creation of a task force, Takuba, composed of European special forces and integrated into the command of Operation Barkhane, led by the French.
Takuba's objective is to combat terrorist groups in the cross-border region between Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, which has been plagued by conflict and insecurity for decades.
In September 2020, the European Parliament adopted a resolution on broader EU-African security cooperation in the region. Parliament's overall position is that supporting security actors in third countries in conflict situations and poverty eradication are key to sustainable peace and development.
In other words, there is no peace without security, just as there is no security without peace.
Indeed, and the resolution calls for the EU to be allowed, under exceptional circumstances, to supply arms and ammunition to partner countries in the region in order to defeat terrorist groups, while putting in place enough safeguards to ensure that they are not diverted to these armed groups or used to commit human rights abuses.
So how are the EU's relations with the region likely to evolve in the future? Stay with us.
Well, as the Sahel Action Plan will come to an end in 2020, an overhaul of the strategy is to be expected, and it is very likely that EU leaders will try to align with the Commission's new proposed comprehensive strategy with Africa.
The broader strategy would aim at tackling the common challenges of this century together, from climate change to migration, peace and security, and the digital transformation. And who knows, as the EU tries to reconnect with Africa in a regional and fully fledged partnership, the lessons learned from the Sahel could inspire the whole EU development and security policy on the continent.
You're listening to European Parliamentary Research Service podcasts.